And because I work in a very highly regulated industry, I get to show you this disclaimer, which basically says the following talk will not include any investment advice, but that's probably for the best because I am pretty new to the tech industry. It's my second career in life. So today I want to focus on something I know a bit more about, and that's how to get heard and turn your idea into reality. And I really want to look at this in two parts. The first part being how to get heard and how to get taken seriously. And I assume if you came to this conference today, you probably work in the STEM industry. As we know, the statistics we've been hearing all day and what we see every day in reality is that it's very male-dominated. So getting heard and getting taken seriously is a skill in and of itself. Beyond that, I want to talk about how to take something from an idea to something real in the world and how to create a strategy that gets you through that whole process. So a bit about me. Like I said, I'm new to tech. I've been working as an engineer for about 3 years now, and I learned how to code by attending an all-women's boot camp in Seattle, Washington called Ada Developers Academy. But before I found Ada, I was looking for a career change. I was looking to get into a new industry, find a new job, and when I was looking at my options, the tech industry was really appealing to me for a couple different reasons. The first and obvious one is learning how to code is an in-demand skill set. There's a lot of jobs out there and a lot of options for you. But the other thing that was interesting to me is I'm the type of person who gets bored pretty quickly, so I like to learn something, but once I've learned it, I want to look for my next challenge. And what the tech industry provides is the ability to work all around the world with so many different people on so many different problems, since tech is so pervasive in our culture these days. So this was really appealing to me. I thought it sounded like an amazing job, and my biggest problem was I'd never met an engineer who looked like me. I'd never met someone with a similar background as me. And I didn't really know how to go about getting over this situation of seeing myself in the industry and believing that I had the capacity to learn these technical skills. Finding Ada was absolutely something that helps me break down these barriers, and working with other women and gender diverse people to learn these skills and then get hired into the industry showed me that this industry is just as accessible to me as it is anyone else. So before I found Ada, I was a motorcycle stunt rider. And if you have no idea what that means, that's totally fine because it's really a job I just made up for myself. The sport of motorcycle stunt riding is a new extreme sport that developed in the late 90s. And it was really developed by a group of people who loved sport bikes. They were passionate about riding, and they liked hanging out with their friends and doing this sport. But these bikes were designed for a very specific purpose, and that was motorcycle racing. Now, motorcycle racing is a very expensive hobby. It's a difficult hobby where you have to transport your bike to these specialized tracks. And these people in the late 90s who liked these bikes were not in a socioeconomic class where that was an option for them. And instead of letting that fact become a blocker, they looked at the bikes and they were like, okay, this was not designed for a person like me. How can I make this better? How can I solve this problem and make this work for me and build a community that works for other people like me? So what they did was started doing tricks the world had never seen before on these motorcycles. They ended up inventing all of these modifications that let us do these really fun tricks. So that's what really attracted me to motorcycle stunting in the first place. I started it as a hobby, and as my skills grew, there were literally no other women in the world doing the skills at this level, so I naturally started getting calls for jobs. And when this started happening, I thought to myself, if there's any chance that I could turn this into a full-time job and be a motorcycle stunt rider, whatever that means, I absolutely want to take that opportunity, and I want to give that a try. So through a lot of trial and error, I was able to develop a career that I was really proud of. And I was able to do international motorcycle stunts tours around the world. I had an agent in Hollywood and was doing commercial work. But really, what kept me in it the longest, and my favorite thing about this job, was after a show or event, when a woman or a girl would come up to me really excited and say, "I've never seen someone who looks like me doing stunts on a motorcycle before." And while I was never really looking to get more people involved in stunt riding, like it's not really a very useful skill set, I was hoping that that inspiration would translate in some other part of their life, and that they would take that inspiration and look at some of their ideas and dreams and think about them in a more realistic light. So through building this motorcycle stunt career and then transitioning into a radically different industry like tech and building a career there, I've developed a strategy that has helped me navigate these male-dominated industries, and that's what I want to share with you today. But before we get into the strategy, I want to talk a bit about why your idea is important. So your idea is important because it has the opportunity to advance your career, which is awesome for you. But additionally, it also has the potential to shape the world around you. So your idea is important because it comes from you using your unique set of life experiences. And I think at conferences like this and in general, we hear a lot about needing to get more women into tech. And even as a woman in tech myself, I think it becomes easy to not think of you being very instrumental in that movement and that your ideas specifically matter. And yes, we need women as a whole in tech, but that means your ideas need to translate into something real. So take them very seriously. All right, so if anyone here has an idea that's kind of been in the back of their mind and they haven't really found a way to think about how to bring it into the world, I would say use the next 20 minutes to think about that as we build this strategy. And try to leave this room today with one thing you can do today or tomorrow or next week to start that journey of turning your idea into reality. So when you're starting this journey, the first thing to do, or the first thing I like to do, is think about blockers. And to think about blockers in a very specific light, that they can't stop you, and they're just problems that can be solved. And start to look at what the cost-benefit ratio is. So when you approach problems and blockers like this, like with the mentality that there is a solution here, I might not see it immediately, but I can do the work to figure it out. Start asking questions, start gathering more data. What can you do to get more information about this situation where a solution will start to come to life? So when I was trying to learn my first stunt when I was first getting into stunt riding. And I wanted to learn how to do a wheelie, which is a movement where you use the clutch and the gas to pop your motorcycle back up on the front wheel or on the rear wheel, and then use a combination of balance and gas to keep it there balanced at that point on the rear wheel. So motorcycles are powerful, they're big machines, they're heavy machines, they're scary to ride on two wheels, so like think about riding it on one wheel. So my blocker became fear. Like I was really scared to get the motorcycle on the back wheel. So I started asking people, and by people I mean the other men who were doing this sport. So I started asking them, like, how did you learn? And I got these very macho answers, like, oh, I just did it. It just came naturally to me. I'm like, really? So your method, you're telling me, is just do it. And from what I could observe at the stunt spot, their method was leading to a lot of just crashing and just going to the hospital another time. So the cost-benefit ratio for me I was not going to sign up for that, right? That wasn't going to work for me. So I ended up taking a slightly different approach. And I worked with a really technical, advanced rider. And together with him, we broke down this wheelie into tiny little skill sets. So when I went out to the stunt spot and trained every day, I wasn't training to do a wheelie, the whole wheelie, right? That was too scary for me, I realized that. So I was learning these tiny little skills, and on their own, they were super boring, and everyone was like, what on earth is that woman doing over there? Like, it looks like she's doing nothing. And over time, I was able to link these skills together, and in the end, I had my wheelie. So after I successfully went through that experience, I made a video and shared my method online. And it's been really awesome over the past couple years to have people all over the world reach out to me or see me in person and say, you taught me how to do a wheelie. Your method really resonated with me. That's how I got into the sport that I enjoy so much now. And having that validation of you might look different and you might look weird using your method or doing it your way, but if it's working for you, keep doing it. And additionally, you might be setting an example you don't even know. So after you've mentally prepared yourself for the regular blockers, there's the blockers that are personal to you. And these are the cultural obstacles that you will face personally. And they're very specific to who you are, what your idea is, and the audience you're trying to share your idea with. And it's important to think about these up front because it's an unfortunate reality that you're going to have to build this into your strategy. And no one can really do it for you, but you can understand what prejudice and what biases that you and your idea will face. So when I was thinking, after I'd learned how to stunt and I was trying to think about how I would build a career in the industry, I knew that one cultural obstacle I would face was that women are not taken seriously in motorsports. So I looked at the industry and I looked at how women were portrayed. And really the only women you could see were women like holding an umbrella for a guy or like maybe posing next to a car or motorcycle. And that's not what I was signing up for. That's not what I wanted to be cast as. I wanted to be seen as a serious athlete. So I knew this would be a challenge for me and something that I would need to keep in mind every step of the way. So one of the first things I did was, before I took on sponsors or promoted a product, I wanted to make sure that I was leading with my skills and that that was very clearly visible. The fact that I'd done the work, I'd put in the time, I cared about the community and sport, and that that was made visible so that I would have less of a challenge there. I also created a platform that allowed me to teach other people to stunt and also set up their motorcycles. And putting myself out in the public eye as an educator and an expert also helped me shape myself as a serious athlete. So after you're ready to overcome any challenges and blockers, you can start to identify the stakeholders who will be successful in turning your idea into reality. And I like to break this down into 3 different categories. And if you're wondering, like, is this just something I'm doing in my head? No, I'm like actually writing it down. And there's like Post-it notes with people's names on them and organizations' names on them. And I start with the gatekeepers. And these are people who are gonna hold the key to some early part of your idea's success. So they might be investors that you need to get money from, or they might be your boss at work who you need to get approval from to start a new project or start your idea. After you know who those people are, I like to think about my allies and influencers. And allies are people who I trust and who have some domain level expertise around my idea. So I can feel comfortable showing them like the first iteration of my project before it's real, before it's developed, and they can give me feedback on where I should continue improving. The influencers are kind of in between allies and end users, and a good way to identify who these people might be is to look at your end users and ask yourself, okay, who do these people trust? Who are they looking for advice? And if you can identify some influencers, they can help you get your idea out to your end users, get the idea translated and adopted in an organic way, because your end users trust them, and the influencers will also be able to speak the language of your end users. So finally, once you know what you're saying and who you're saying it to, you want to start building a communication strategy. So once you know your stakeholders, you should start talking to them as much as possible and begin to distill what value your idea is providing them. because it's going to be a bit different for every stakeholder. You can imagine your gatekeepers might be investors. They're going to be people who are wondering how your idea is going to make them money. Whereas your end users will have very different questions about how your idea is affecting their life. So I'd like to create a communication strategy specific for each stakeholder group. And to make sure my communication strategy is strong, I think about covering 3 different domains. So reason, research, and emotion. So the reason is really your elevator pitch. It's that logical reason why your idea exists in the first place. Unfortunately, this is not going to convince everyone. It's not even going to convince most people. So making sure you have a solid body of research together can help you provide third-party validation as to why your idea is great and why you're the person who should bring it into the world. Finally, there's the emotional layer of your communication strategy. And this is probably the most difficult to nail, but it is also the most important. People do not make decisions on logical reasons. They don't usually even make decisions on facts, unfortunately. So having a strong emotional thread through your communication strategy that can connect your idea to the stakeholder is very powerful. And it's really what can take your communication strategy from a sales pitch to this idea that you tell the world and they just love and want to be a part of, and they can't really even put their finger on why. So now that you have groups of stakeholders, you have communication strategies for each group, you can start to roll your idea out into the world. And also, I know I haven't been talking about building a thing in the world, but at this point, I hope you've built something, a product or some service you'll be providing end users. And thinking about the rollout strategy when you have these specific stakeholders and communication strategies specifically for them can help you be strategic with how you're releasing this idea into the world. And you can do it in waves that will allow you to continue to iterate. And as your idea gets closer and closer to the end user, you can be certain that it is correctly developed for that group of people. All right, so there are some studies that show women are less likely to take individual credit for something that they've created, while as men are more likely to say, yeah, I did that. And this can be negative at end of year review, or if you're interviewing for another company, explaining projects you've been a part of. So while I would not say do what men do, and take credit for everything, because most things are a team effort, measuring your success, documenting it, can help you get visible and take credit in a more authentic way, however feels right for you. So measuring your success really should start at the beginning of your idea's genesis. So from the very beginning, you can ask yourself, what data and metrics can I collect that will prove my idea has been a success? So what sampling can I take at the beginning, and then at the end, when put together, will prove that your idea worked and is providing value in the world? Also, document your success, and not just your success, but the challenges that you met along the way and how you overcame them. When you have those metrics and that documentation, it's going to put you in a good place at end of year review when you're asking for a promotion or maybe negotiating for a salary raise, when you have these raw data that proves your idea was successful. Last but not least, be prepared to crash. Be prepared to fail. I think motorcycle stunt riding made me approach crashing in a very unique way. This is a picture moments before I flipped my motorcycle over backwards on myself. And it was right before a show. I was warming up. I was fully prepared for this, totally geared up, and was able to pick my motorcycle up and continue on with the show. So crashing and failures are going to make you better. I think it's common that they make us stop or lose confidence, but really look at those as opportunities to learn and grow. Also, remember to wear a helmet. All right, in summary, I want to remind you that your ideas absolutely matter, your ideas specifically. And if you have this goal or this idea and you're not really sure how it's going to translate into something real, take the time to sit down with a pen and paper and just start sketching out a strategy. List out some gatekeepers, list out some blockers, even if it's rough. At the end of this process, your idea will be better developed, and you might have a first step that looks like something you can accomplish. Even if you don't think you can accomplish the whole plan, even if your plan trails off and it fades away and you don't know how you're going to get to the end, take that first step, go out into the world and accomplish it. Then move on to the next. And in the end, you may have found you turned your idea into reality, one feasible step at a time. All right, thank you so much for being here with me today. I'm going to be at the 2 Sigma desk for the rest of the afternoon. If you have any questions or if you want to stop by and chat about my experience going through a boot camp, learning how to code, getting into tech, or crashing my motorcycle, please feel free to stop by. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference.